and make him campaign in certain swing states that they know that he lost by a little bit, and make him campaign extra there, and then he goes there, campaigns extra, and then wins it, and barely wins, And I remember when I heard somebody tell me when he was running for president the first time, and he was in his plane or whatever, and they're like, yeah, if you win, what are you gonna do? He's like, I will win, trust me, wink wink, But anyways, this guy Andy Basiago says he was in a place, in one of those places, and he saw George Bush Sr. and Jr. and they're like bragging that they were told they were going to be president. And he says he even hung out with Barack Obama when he was 20 and Barack Obama was 20. And they told Barack Obama, they introduced Barack Obama as the future president because they knew he was going to be president because they looked at the future by using these little kids. So they use these little kids, and they'd have the kids, I guess they'd take them, they'd imagine a future, the kid would see the future somehow created by this machine, and this hyperdimensional machine that the kid was in. They'd do the clicks when they got to where they were, so the kid has to look to the side, off to the, I guess, the canvas of the projector thing, haze, and tell them what they see. But he says that there was also, now he did not explain how this worked, but he said you could also travel in time physically. He said you could travel in time physically where you could interact with the people, and the people saw you and could talk to you. And I know Alex Collier, the UFO contactee, claims that Thomas Jefferson, when he was thinking of words to put in the Declaration of Independence, there was some hooded guy who didn't write, way up in his house in the middle of nowhere, Monticello, telling him which words he should put in the Declaration of Independence, and the guy disappeared. And then when they were all signing it, there was some guy who nobody knew who he was, but he was just talked for a half hour about the importance of it. And then he left, and they were all like, "Oh, who was that guy?" Anyways, let's sign it. So I don't know. So maybe that was time travelers going back, but he says he was a time traveler, and he says he went down to. He says he and his father actually went to the Civil War, time traveled to the Civil War. So they dressed him and in Civil War outfit, and then he went over to the Civil War, Battle of Gettysburg, I think, and he was talking to people, and then they sent him back there a few times because they wanted to find out who killed Abraham Lincoln. They just weren't sure that it was John Wilkes Booth. They thought maybe it was could have been somebody else. And so they talked him into, told him how to try to sneak in, say that his parents were in there and he just didn't have his ticket, and he tried to run up the stairs and he just never was successful for some reason. And every time he went back there was something different, the guy talked to him differently. He saw stuff was placed a little bit differently. So each time they sent him back, he went to a different parallel universe, which makes sense to me. If I would imagine, there's an infinite amounts of parallel universes, and every time you time travel, you're just going back in time. You're not really time traveling, you're just going to another parallel universe next to you that's behind you in a certain year that you want to go to. So they finally, I guess, stopped doing that because they gave up on it. But one thing that doesn't add up with Andy Basiago is that if that's the case with parallel universes, then why? He said that you could affect your own universe by traveling back in time. So how's that? He says that he gave an example that he wrote an SAT test for some college kids, and one of his students, maybe he was a teacher, I don't know, but came up to him and gave him some certain quote, motivational quote, And it was the same quote that he gave to his dad when he was a kid, and his dad was friends with this student's grandfather. So he gave it to his dad gave it to this grandfather, who gave it to this kid, who then gave it to him. So it's like this self-perpetuating, at least I think that's how it goes, a self-perpetuating circle, and he analogized it to the Chinese dragon eating its tail over and over again, like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, and it just... So that doesn't make any sense to me. That seems completely out of sync with the idea of time traveling to parallel universes, and you can never affect what's happening in your own universe. So maybe he's wrong about that, and he just hasn't thought it through enough because he's just not smart in that way. Or he's totally full of shit. Maybe he is full of shit. Maybe it's just all a big ruse. Or there's some weird thing, but I don't see how that could be possible. So anyways, that's my big question. If anybody has the answer, that would be great to hear. But and he didn't really explain how the time travel... Well, I guess I just tried to explain it. But yeah, he says that our government's been doing that for a long time, since '68 anyways, using this device to send people in there to certain amounts of future and tell them, and even interact with the future. Now, how did that happen? How would they send somebody back in time and actually interact with people? He even went forward in time. He said he went to the year 2045 to the same facility that he worked in, and I guess it was still that facility. And he was walking around, and there were these, everybody was riding around on Segways really fast. There were no cars. There was lots of foliage. People were dressed in kind of Star Trek-y outfits. It's kind of how I would imagine the future. And people were really tall, and you saw these two, tall girls in there who were like, oh, look, it's Andy Basiago. So I guess he says because he was famous. Because he wrote the book about the life on Mars, and so he thinks that it's his destiny, and I guess he was told that it was his destiny to write the book on the life on Mars, and then his dad actually read passages because they went in the future and they got the book, or they somehow got the transcript of the book, and his dad was reading passages of this book to him as a kid, as like a 6-year-old kid, and all of his siblings, from his book, and laughing, and then he grabbed it, and it said by Andy Basiago, and I was like, what? 40 years before he wrote it. So basically he thinks that he's destined to be famous whistleblower, talking about the guy who exposes life on Mars, and that's what his big thing is. His big thing that excites him is try to get people to know about the projects, but also that there's life on Mars. And that's what this book he wrote is all about, the one that you can download, the audio version of it on my website. The book is pretty short. It's not that long. You can get through it in an hour or something. And I suppose it comes with lots of photos. There is a photo of somebody walking. It looks like a woman because it's got tits. It looks like a Bigfoot type of thing, like a monkey person. Walking there on Mars. But he says he went to Mars in one of these jump rooms, they're called. And he went there with a mentor type of a person when he was 21, I think. And he gets off, and he was greeted by some people there, and he said they didn't have helmets on. And he went there in a helmet, and he was like, what? There's an atmosphere on Mars? So he took his helmet off. Just like that movie, Mars, Mission to Mars with Tim Robbins. Take the helmet off, and and he can breathe in Mars. It was just not as much oxygen, and it was hot, but it had an atmosphere on it that you can breathe. So he said he was tootling around, and there was like a house up there.